Islam Makhachev just dominated JDM for 5 straight rounds to become the welterweight champion. And honestly, this was a almost Khamzat Chimaev level performance. JDM had pretty much nothing to offer throughout this fight. And I think it's time we talk about Islam Makhachev being the greatest of all time in the sport. But first, let's cover the fight. From the moment the bell rang, JDM was trying to establish the range with the jab, and that greatly helped out Islam Makhachev because of one factor, which was the low kick. Islam Makhachev absolutely hammered JDM early with these low kicks that just chopped his leg. I mean, they damaged his leg badly, and it really only took maybe 8 low kicks. Islam Makhachev at 170 seems to have way more power. The cardio was not a factor because of the fact that he was on top the entire time in a dominant position. Early in the fight, Makhachev secured a single leg takedown on JDM and stayed on top. JDM had pretty much nothing to offer. With Belal Muhammad, he was able to defend the takedowns easier, but he was also able to get up from the bottom easier. Makhachev really just showed levels. He showed that when it comes to Belal, he's nothing like Belal on the ground. He has way more control, and JDM had pretty much no way of getting back up to his feet. And going throughout the rounds, there was brief striking, and honestly, I would say Makhachev got the better of the striking. I think he landed more damage. JDM might have landed more punches to the head. I'm not sure what the exact stats are, but for sure he landed more damage because of that low kick. The absolute domination on the ground combined with the damage from the low kick wore down JDM to a level we've never seen JDM, and it was surprising because the great cardio we saw that he had against Belal was just not there. And kind of similar to Khamzat versus DDP, it was because he was stuck on bottom getting completely smothered, and it just zapped the energy literally from round 1. From round 1, JDM was getting smothered by Makhachev, and after that, you could just see the punches of JDM being way less effective. I mean, his jab looked labored going into the second round, and that was all because of the first round of just the pressure Islam Makhachev had. And because of that, Makhachev was not gassing out at all. You know, going up to 170, a big narrative was, I talked about it. Is Makhachev going to get tired quicker? And I thought so, because I thought JDM would be able to defend takedowns and scramble more. But because of the fact that he was on top so dominantly, he didn't have to exert a lot of energy. Similar to how we saw Khamzat Chimaev versus DDP, and JDM was pretty much fighting off submission after submission, which he did well, and obviously he prepared for going into this fight. But what he didn't prepare for enough, or just didn't know how to do, was get up from Islam Makhachev. He seemed hesitant to try to go for Islam Makhachev's legs and wrestle up that way, probably because of the Darce choke, but he couldn't get a knee frame at all, and I think that's because of Makhachev's pressure on top. And in terms of the boxing, I think JDM might have landed a little bit more significant punches to the body and head, but the problem was that in these very brief scrambles, Makhachev would end up in a clinch position and able to just take him down from close range. And all of that led to pretty much a just absolute domination and Makhachev becoming a double champion, which begs the question, who is next for Islam Makhachev and who can beat Islam Makhachev? From the looks of it, at welterweight, it kind of seems like pretty much nobody. I mean, the only person to beat Makhachev is if somebody can land a knockout and get really lucky. Kamaru Usman's talking about it, but he came off of kind of a mid-performance against Buckley. That would be a little bit more of an interesting fight because of the grappling of Usman. It'd probably be on the feet, but I think Makhachev would win that on the feet. We saw a great win from Carlos Prates, but Carlos Prates, I mean, I think the same thing would happen to him on the ground. And I think probably the same thing to Michael Morales, who was also on this card, who got a finish over Sean Brady. They both have great performances, but in terms of the grappling, I just think Makhachev will dominate them. Probably even more so than JDM, which leaves Belal Muhammad and Ian Gary, who are fighting. I'm predicting Ian Gary to win that fight against Belal. If he fights Islam Makhachev, honestly, I think Ian Gary gives Makhachev the toughest test. I know there's talk about Shavkat, who probably won't get the next title shot because he's been out for so long. I think Shavkat would get dominated on the ground as well. Ian Gary had his moments against Shavkat. I think Makhachev would dominate Shavkat on the ground. I think Ian Gary's the one who has the best chance. Am I picking him to beat Makhachev? Probably not. But I think if there's one person who has the best chance at welterweight, it's Ian Gary. And then there's that one final fight, and we all know what it is. It's Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. Now, I'm going to be honest, at 170, if Ilia Topuria comes up, I cannot pick him against Makhachev. I just can't. Makhachev looks great at this weight, and that's just too big of a size for Topuria. At 155, though, I think I might lean a little bit more towards Islam Makhachev after this, but it's a way different fight. I think I'm close to 50-50 on that. I think that's the fight to make. That's the real tough test, the biggest fight for Islam Makhachev. I think that's the fight to make at the White House. Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria at 155, but who knows? I don't know if Islam Makhachev's going to want to go back down to 155 after having such an easy performance at welterweight and an easy weight cut. I think the money's probably going to have to be right for that one, but that's what all the fans want to see. But all the other fights on this card were pretty good except for the co-main event. Bo Nickel had an insane head kick knockout. He looks a lot better on the feet. He looks improved since his Reiner de Ritter fight. Benoit Saint Denis gets a massive KO over Beneil Dariush early in the fight, 18 seconds. Carlos Prates got that insane KO over Leon Edwards. They might push him for a shot against Islam, who knows? And so did Michael Morales. He had a great performance, finished Sean Brady in the first round. But this is probably the most impressive performance of this year. I think it's more impressive than the Khamzat over DDP because, listen, DDP, I predicted Khamzat to win that fight, and it was simply because I knew DDP's takedown defense was just not good, and his wrestling in general is just not good, and he's a guy that relies on physicality. I predicted JDM to win this fight because I knew how good JDM is. I knew how good his striking is. I knew how good his takedown defense and get-ups are, but where I went wrong was underestimating Islam Makhachev. He made a fighter as good as JDM look easy. I'm going to be honest, I think Islam Makhachev is the greatest of all time. You know, things may change in the future, they will change in the future, but for right now, I think Islam Makhachev has passed John Jones as greatest of all time, has passed George St. Pierre as greatest of all time, and I think it's a pretty easy argument. I may make another video about that, but right now, Islam Makhachev had one of the best double champ performances we've ever seen. And against one of the best welterweights, one of the most skilled fighters in the UFC, this performance doesn't show how bad JDM is. It shows how good Islam Makhachev is. He had his toughest fight in his entire career, and it was one of his most dominant performances. Let me know what you guys think about this fight. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.